Please welcome noted author of books on machine learning and AI, founder of a data consultancy company, and a Microsoft Data Platform MVP since 2016, Ginger Grant.
Great to see everybody. You all made it to Friday. Wonderful. You know, about this time of the week, you might be thinking about all the stuff that you had to do back at the office. How many people diligently checked their email the entire time they were here? You're lying. If not that, though, I'm sure that there are some things that, speaking for myself, that I put off because I knew that, well, I'm not going to be able to do that and finish it, and I'll just do it when I get back. And to think about it, there's actually a number of things that I procrastinate, and I've really noticed this in the last year. And it's something that I'm really trying to work on. So naturally, I've been analyzing all the data, professional hazard, and looking at how I think that there are ways to get better at doing that. And hopefully we all can benefit a little bit from that. Because thinking about just different things for procrastination, like busted clickers. You know what? This is not working. Yes, almost working. Yay! Thinking about this, about procrastination. I have had an IKEA cabinet that I took out of the box, looked at the little diagram, and that's as far as it's gotten. And it's been there for a while. I bought that a little while ago. And it's a project that I've put off. And I really wish I hadn't done that. And I was thinking about, well, why don't I want to finish it? What's making me not do it, other than I'm not particularly handy? So I want to kind of tell you how I'm going to get to that cabinet, which, to be honest, right now is still in pieces in my garage. Yeah, one of the things that I figured out about procrastinating is there are things that you can put off that don't really matter, like that IKEA cabinet. And there are things that do start to matter, and things that have timeliness to them. And one of the things that I've decided to not procrastinate much with is something that I learned here at, Pass Summit. I know that 56% of the people are new and do not know who this fine gentleman is. But I used to work with Gareth. Gareth is a really great guy. I met him here at Pass Summit. And when I met him, one of the first things he said is like, "Hey, you want some of my meat?" Gareth was a wonderful creator of South African barbecue, and it is the best South African barbecue I have ever had. It's also the only South African barbecue I've ever had, but it was really good anyway. And Gareth was a really good guy, and he was really, really fun, really a wonderful human being. And I just put off connecting with him. And I didn't get my chance to do that again. Unfortunately, he passed from complications from COVID. And I beat myself up. I'm like, why didn't I just talk to him more? I put it off. I procrastinated. And now I can't do it. And I was thinking, about that, about procrastination. I like to think that was a little bit of a wake-up call. And thinking, okay, people are more important. I need to figure out how to keep on talking to my friends and friends that I have met here. And the only way that I could figure out how to do that is I scheduled it in Outlook. And when I said that to my sister, she said, "That is really corporate and lame." I'm not going to argue that point. She does have a point. But the thing is, if corporate and lame means that I talk to my friends and not blow off talking to them friends, I'll do it. I don't care what you call it, because that's important. And one of the things that is really important is that you remember that here. Because really, I know that you've all probably learned some amazing new technical stuff. and seen some wonderful presentations and probably learned some new skills. But I wanted to let you know, as somebody who's come to Path Summit for a number of years, some of the tech has changed, go figure. But what hasn't changed is the value of people that I've met here and my desire to keep on growing my professional relationship. And that's something that I think that now's the time to think about that. Because you've met people. I know I've connected with some people on LinkedIn, and one of the person I talked to said, yeah, I'm coming to Scottsdale probably in a couple months. I'm like, let's get in touch, when you're coming, we'll go get a drink or coffee or something. Stuff like that to keep the connections going with the people that you meet here. So I was thinking about that. I'm like, okay, I figured out how I can better stay connected to people. Using my lame corporate way, I don't care, it does work. But there are other reasons that I'm procrastinating, and other things that I'm not doing, because I found that in analyzing the data, there's more than one reason why I procrastinate and don't get things done. And I was thinking about that when I've been talking, people that I've been talking to. And I was talking to a guy at another conference in Vegas, and he was talking about how he was really happy that he had the courage to come to a conference. And I thought about that. I'm like, courage? Conference? What? See, he suffered from really severe anxiety. And he's not the only person that I know who does that. And things that I think are like no big deal to get up and talk to people that I don't know. Some people think, oh, that's so hard. I can't do that. Well, I encourage you to be courageous. Because here's the thing. Why is it hard? Because you run through your head all of these things that can happen. Also, I want you to analyze the data and think, what is the probability of that actually occurring? And what is a lottery? What are the lottery numbers? I mean, think about it, because some of the things that people don't want to try because they're scared of what might happen, but yet they'll go buy lottery tickets, and the odds for anything on that are not the same. So think about that. So one thing, the reason that I don't do things is because I don't want to fail at them. And if they're not done, I haven't failed because it's not done. That's not necessarily going to work either. A week ago, I was talking to Pam, actually, at another conference, kind of a theme with me, right? And she was talking about her first job that she had out of school. And she said something at that conversation that has just stuck with me. And she said she would have been there forever because she was addicted to comfort. And she also said the job was terrible. They didn't treat her very well. She wasn't learning a whole lot, but she was comfortable. No risk. She felt good. But she also said that she got fired, got a new job, and the fact that she didn't want to risk everything, but the fact that she did anyway literally changed her life. Because she is in a much better position now than she ever would have been. And she stayed there and stayed addicted to comfort. So again, it's about feeling uncomfortable. So looking at the data, I have a couple of things that we can help to get us out of procrastinating. One of them is just the boring scheduling. You do need to write down when you're going to do something. And that will trigger your mind for, oh, I need to do this. And that will really help you get things done. But the other thing is, I really realize why I'm not doing things is because I'm afraid that they're not going to be done well. I'm afraid I don't know what I'm doing. So one thing that I have started to do, because I don't know how to do everything, nobody does, but I do know a lot of other technical people. And I like to think that as a person who likes helping other people out, that they have a similar ethos. And I know because they tell me, call me if you're stuck, I'll help you out. And although it makes me feel stupid to do that, I'm hoping that someday they'll call me. And there's something that I may know that they don't, and I can help them out. And that has happened this year. And the other thing that I thought about when looking at procrastination is not making a decision is a decision. So things you think you're putting off because it doesn't matter, it will matter. And one of the things that can really help you be courageous and do things that are risky, which may mean attempting things that you don't know how to do, use AI. AI can definitely give you an answer. And generally speaking, I like to use it how I do at work when people say, what should my Power BI report, when I ask them, what should I put in my Power BI report? And then we have meetings and nothing happens. And I give them a report and they're like, oh, not that. And that's what I do with AI, generally speaking, is I'll have it put something together and I'm like, well, I can do better than that. And I can, because, it's AI. It's pretty dopey. But it's much better looking at text that I don't like than that blinking cursor. So use AI that way. And the other thing, too, is it's important to put yourself outside of your risk zone and realize some things are scary. And if you do more scary things, I'm not advocating jumping out of planes or anything, but if you do more things that you find difficult, then it becomes easier. It's kind of like running. First time you do it, you're going to die. If you do it more, you get better at it. Well, taking risks the same way. And one of the things that I wanted to call out for, a lot of people say that public speaking is extremely terrifying, and they don't want to do it. If that is a risk that you want to do because you do think it can help your career, one thing that I wanted to talk about is New Stars of Data. This is a great program that Ben Wiseman put together some years ago. Ben? Okay. Ben's in the back. He's wearing great glasses, and he has a German accent, so he's the guy you need to talk to if you don't, about New Stars of Data. This was, of course, from this year. There were 3 finalists. And I'm Stephanie, Pritha, and Attar. So they were the finalists for this year. One great thing about this program is you get a mentor to help you out, to help you conquer some of your fears. And I highly recommend that you do this. It also helps build your network. And networks are helpful for when you just need to be bailed out because you don't know exactly how to finish something. So building the support network is why we're here, I hope. It is the other way that you can keep from procrastinating. Because another trick that I found out works is tell somebody you're working on something. I've told all of you that I have this IKEA cabinet that I don't have finished. I bet you somebody I know is going to ask me about that. Hey, it's a motivator. I know that once it's out there, I know people who have said, they tell people, I'm going to lose weight because they're hoping to get it out in the ether so then it'll come back to them. And then someone's going to ask them about it. Here you can create a great support network, and I hope you do take advantage of that. And again, don't procrastinate. Do corporate and lame things just to make sure that you're sending somebody a text on LinkedIn, just letting them know, hey, I still remembered meeting you, and I still want to talk to you. Because you never know. Sometimes somebody just saying, hey, just thinking about you can really make your day. You never know. You may be the person that would be the only light that person has had in their day. I've had days like that. So what I want to do is basically tell everybody here to reach out. I know you've done that this week. Continue to do that. Go back home. Check out the meetups in your local organization. I know I run the Arizona Data Platform Users Group, and we meet the second Wednesday of every month. And I met a guy who'd never heard of it. And I hope you come to our meetup that we're doing in December. I told you we're doing it in a bar in Tempe, so please do come. But for the rest of you, or if, hey, anybody in Phoenix, look us up on Meetup. In your area, there's probably another organization that's meeting. Reach out. In today's economy, you can't afford not to have a network. I don't want to be Debbie Downer and talk about the layoffs, but we know they've happened. And having people that know other people means that you're recession-proof. So it's a great position to be in, and this can help you do that. The other thing, too, is, of course, PASS is having more events. I was told that the call for speakers for Chicago is going to be in January. So those of you who are interested in speaking to that, take a look at that. And I hope to see you all here next year. And I wish I could get to Frankfurt, but that's probably not happening. But you'll probably see Ben, because that's more of his hometown, or closer to it anyway. All right, thank you very much. I really appreciate your time today. And now I want to introduce our keynote speaker, who has a track record most entrepreneurs dream about. Over the past 20 years, he has built and sold 3 of the leading data and AI businesses in the United States, acquiring 8 more companies along the way, taking them from bootstrap startups to private equity growth, and ultimately to billion-dollar valuations. The secret to his success is his ability to coach and support those around him. While building these companies, he simultaneously coached over 100 CEOs and founders across the US and Europe. It wasn't a side hustle, it was a passion. After his most recent exit, he went all in on what drives him most. He created Everest Partners to bring those billion-dollar playbooks to passionate founders. He and his team work to bring more than ideas and stories. They embed in the trenches alongside those companies. At Everest Partners, he calls it turning grit into growth, and that's precisely what he's here to talk about today. Adam's here not just to share his story, but to give you the same playbooks that helped him and hundreds of other data leaders scale to massive success. While he's not transforming businesses, you'll find him being a competitive girl dad to his daughter, Harper. He loves participating in ultra-endurance events and is planning a sailing circumnavigation with his family. Clearly, building billion-dollar companies is not adventurous enough. He's no stranger to PASS, having held various volunteer and board leadership roles with the organization over the past 15 years. Today, he's here to share the real stories and battle-tested strategies for making a massive impact in our AI data-driven world. Maybe it's strategies to help you make your own massive impact. Bring it back to the value you'll bring the audience. Please join me in welcoming an incredible entrepreneur, mentor, and data community icon, Adam Jorgensen.
Okay. Good morning. I think we can do a little better than that. Good morning. I know what last night was, so I get it. 5 years ago, I found myself 2/3 of the way up a mountain. Scared, exhausted, unable to feel my hands or feet. I was soaking wet, covered in mud, and facing an impossible choice. Find a way forward through what I thought were insurmountable conditions, or, well, there really wasn't an or. Going back really wasn't an option. Today, I want to talk about the gifts of clarity that mountain gave me. Because every single person in this room is somewhere on their own mountain right now. Maybe you're stuck, exhausted, scared, or just wondering how to keep climbing without sliding backwards. Getting to the top requires shifting our perspective. And by the time we're done here today, you'll understand 3 critical shifts that transformed how I lead in the fastest moving industry on earth. More importantly, you'll have new tools to navigate whatever terrain you're facing right now. I thought I was ready for that mountain. I'd signed up for an Everest event. It's a challenge where you climb a mountainside 15 to 20 times, about 30 miles in 36 hours to reach the equivalent elevation of Mount Everest. It was supposed to kickstart and motivate my fitness journey. I needed something big, something that would force me to change. And when I got to the mountain, I was nervous when you're staring at it. But I was feeling pretty good as I went to bed. Overnight, a huge snowstorm blew in, and the mountain turned into something else entirely. Mud, snow, ice, the kind of conditions that make experienced climbers turn around. But we were already committed. The event was on. The first climb up, I thought I can muscle through it, move faster, push harder. That's always been my mindset. I'd prepared for this, right? Wrong. The mud was so thick, it pulled my boots off. The ice made every foothold a gamble, and every single step was a fight. 8 hours in, 2/3 of the way up on my first climb, reality hit hard. The freezing rain had soaked through every layer I was wearing. I couldn't feel my hands. My feet were numb blocks of ice inside my shoes, and my knees and my back were screaming at me to stop. Every step felt like my body was going to give out. But worse than the physical pain was the mental spiral. I was so cold, I couldn't think straight. I was scared. Not scared of failing, scared of falling. Scared I'd made a huge mistake and put myself in real danger. And then I looked up and I saw other people passing me. People who'd already been to the top once, twice, 3 times. They were on their 3rd or 4th lap while I was barely holding on. And that's when the tears started. Part exhaustion, part frustration, part fear. I was fighting for every single foot up that slope. My body was done, completely done. But here's the thing about these events, you can't really quit halfway up. The path down is more treacherous than the path forward. I was committed whether I liked it or not. And that's when a coach from the event found me. His name's Brent. He's a rock star. He's one of these multiple Ironman World Championship winning, world-class endurance athletes. He just walked up to me like it was nothing. He'd been seeing me struggle. And he came up beside me, crouched down where I was trying to stand, and instead of telling me what to do or just trying to be encouraging, he started asking me questions. He said, "How are you trying to move? How's that working? So what else could you try?" And I looked down, my hands already numb. I said, "Well, I could crawl." I said, "But crawling kind of feels like giving up." He said, "It's not giving up, it's adapting." So I got up on my hands and knees. I used my numb hands to feel through the mud for rocks, and I found a place off the path that was even steeper, but there was some grass, which was a lifesaver at that moment. And I could grab a bit of a hold and push my way forward. And I started moving again. Not fast, definitely not pretty, but moving. That shift from forcing my way through the same path to finding a different way, that's what got me to the top. That mountain taught me something that completely changed the way that I think about growth. When you're stuck on difficult terrain, you don't need to be stronger or faster. You need to think differently. That lesson about adapting instead of forcing, that transformation extended beyond that climb. Over the next 2 years, I used that same mindset to transform my health, losing over 200 pounds. We used that mindset to grow our business to be worth over $1 billion. And I used that mindset to find different paths when the obvious ones weren't working. And right now, every data professional in this room is on your own difficult terrain. Getting to the top requires shifting. Like when you take off in a sports car, first gear is all about shifting your perspective, how you look at things. Second gear, shift our thinking, how we process that information, how we think about it, how we mentally use it. Third gear, shift our communication. How do we take those thoughts and begin to communicate differently? And fourth gear, once we've fully up to speed, we shift our behavior. At my last company, I was known for saying, data leads the way. And we did. We were the largest business unit. We solved every scale problem first. We grew our go-to-market faster. We had the best people. We created an amazing leadership team and received the best client feedback. Yes, I'm biased. But it's true. It's easy to be biased when your team is the best. And that's what I used to tell everybody. Most importantly, we were the most adaptable to partnering with others. Try developing an enterprise AI application or migrating a data center without a strong data team. It's not going to work. The folks in this room know that better than anybody. So let me paint you a picture of what's happening in data organizations right now. This should sound familiar. You're being asked to do more with less, way more with way less. Your insights are in production, but half the company doesn't trust them. And executives want you to move fast, but then question every assumption, every decision, every recommendation. You're drowning in tools and platforms. Too many to count, too many to integrate, too many to review, too many to test. And someone just suggested adding another one. You're translating constantly. The engineers speak one language, the business speaks another, and the executives speak a third. And you're stuck in the middle trying to make everybody understand each other. The technical work, that used to be the easy part. Everybody in this room can learn technology. We've been learning new things our entire career and continuing to grow. Look at the room you're in. You're in a room full of people who are dedicated to that. You know how to build solutions. You know how to connect data. You know how to make accurate predictions and models. But now the technical work is getting more complex faster than ever. AI is supposed to make things easier, but it's actually making everything more complicated, more nuanced, more difficult to explain. And executives read one article or see one YouTube video about Copilot or ChatGPT, and they want to know why every process isn't automated yet. What's keeping you up at night is not the technical challenge. It's that your brilliant analysis and the brilliant work gets ignored. Your recommendations die in email threads. Your insights don't drive action, and you watch decisions get made based on gut feel and vibes. I actually heard that in a meeting last week. I had to go off camera. I'm pretty good at holding my face. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. While the data that we have can sit unused. And here's what makes it worse. The pace keeps accelerating. You're trying to explain limitations and data quality issues and bias concerns and implementation realities. And they hear slow and can't do it and prerequisites. The pressure is crushing. You're expected to be a technical expert, a translator, a strategist, lead projects or teams, and a miracle worker, all at the same time, and the playbook that you've been given doesn't work anymore. You were told, get better technically, work harder, build better insights, show better results, and you did. You got better. You built amazing systems. You worked harder. It still doesn't work because the problem isn't technical. The problem is that the world moved. The game changed. But the old rules don't apply. You can't just be the smartest person in the room anymore. You can't just deliver perfect analysis and expect people to listen. You can't just be right and expect to drive change. we have to lead differently. And make no mistake, I'm not talking about leading because you're a manager or a director or a product lead. I'm talking about leading because data leads the way. Or it should. By the end of the day today, it will. I've spent the last 20 years working in data and AI, first inside big enterprises, then building and growing companies. I've been blessed to work alongside some of the most brilliant people on the planet, a number of whom are in this room tonight, a number of whom you listen to speak at this conference. They're incredible, passionate people. And here's what I've learned. The smartest people aren't always the most impactful. The ones who get promoted, given real influence, they're not just technically excellent. They're the ones people trust. They're understood. They lead in ways that make people want to follow. But here's what's wild. Most of us were never really taught how to lead, what that leadership means. Leadership in too many organizations means org chart. That's not how it works. We were taught how to code, how to query, how to forecast, how to build. We got promoted for solving problems, not inspiring people and moving products forward and shaping industries and shaping corporate strategy. I was fortunate to have great role models, but even with that advantage, I had to learn these shifts the hard way. And in this world of acceleration and automation, and yes, even AI, being brilliant isn't enough. Just like on that mountain, where the path you're on is muddy and slippery, difficult, even in the best conditions, you don't need to push harder through the same path. We need to find a different way forward. So let's talk about the 3 shifts that are going to help you navigate whatever terrain you're facing, not just to do more, but to do better. These are not soft skills, they're navigation skills. They're how we become the kind of leaders people want to follow and trust, not just the ones people ping when something's broken. They might still do that too. I can't take that away. So let me show you what these shifts look like in practice. The first shift is going from soloist to conductor, and we're going to start with Maya. She's one of the best analysts I've ever worked with. Brilliant, precise, fast, Stanford trained. She could write SQL in her sleep, built dashboards that were clean, comprehensive, crisp, but her insights kept falling flat. She'd spend weeks on an analysis, build something rock solid, put together a comprehensive presentation and a report, send it to executives, and nothing. Product designers and managers would sit down with her, review her work, and then cancel at the last minute, or worse yet, listen politely and then do what they were going to do anyway. She was doing great work in isolation. I watched her present a customer retention analysis to the executive team. She had everything. It was beautiful, churn predictions, segment breakdowns. The chief product officer stopped her halfway through and said, "Maya, this is interesting, but we've already decided to focus on acquisition this quarter." And she said, but the data clearly shows retention is the bigger problem. We're losing customers faster than we can acquire them. And she said, "Look, I understand, but we've already committed the resources. Maybe next quarter." The meeting ended. She came by my office. She was furious. She's hurt. And I completely understood. She said, "Why won't they listen? The data is there. It's obvious." Does that feel familiar? So I said, "When's the last time you had coffee with the product lead?" And she looked at me like I said, "When was the last time you went scuba diving with the CEO?" She said, "Coffee? I send her my report, my analysis every week." And I said, does she read it?" She says, "Well, I don't know. I assume so." I don't have a section on assumptions in this talk, but I think you all know what I would say. I said, "When's the last time you asked her what she's working on? When's the last time you talked to her about what problem she needs solved?" And there was this long pause. And she said, "Well, never really." And I said, "Your job isn't necessarily to deliver insights. You're amazing at that. Your job is to solve problems, and you can't solve problems that you don't understand." Her shift was not about better analysis. It's about better relationships. So she started co-creating analysis with stakeholders instead of delivering it to them like a morning paper. The first coffee with the product lead, it was awkward. It was awkward. She didn't really know what to say, so she just said, "What's the hardest thing you're trying to solve right now?" The product lead looked surprised. Analysts didn't usually ask her a lot of questions, but she told her that she's trying to decide between two features. Both seem really important. Both have vocal supporters. Both have political kind of back and forth inside the company, and she's not really sure which direction to go. And she said, what if we figured that out together? What would you need to be confident in that decision? They spent 30 minutes sketching out the analysis on a whiteboard. It started on a napkin in the coffee shop. What metrics mattered, what segments to look at, what time frames, what comparisons. She went back, built that nice and quick, not what she thought was interesting, what they needed to make the right decision. She sent her a draft 2 days later, not a finished report, a draft, with a note. Does this answer the question? What am I missing? How else can I help? She got a note back in 20 minutes. Made a few suggestions, she adjusted. The next week, she presents to the executive team and she explains the decision they're facing and said, "I worked together with Susan to figure out what data would help us clearly make this decision." They decided right there in the room and changed tactics based on their analysis. Remember, on that mountain, I couldn't power through alone. I had to work with what I had available to me, Coach Brent's questions, dry gloves from a kind stranger, the rocks under the mud. Insight alone doesn't drive action. Shared ownership drives action. But being a conductor isn't just about collaboration on individual projects. It's about creating connections that multiply our impact. Ginger touched on this in her talk. I was working with a brilliant senior analyst named Sarah who was stuck on a customer segmentation project 2 months in, great data, but she couldn't get anybody to care. At the same time, our CMO, David, kept saying in meetings, "We don't understand why customers in the Midwest behave so differently. We just keep guessing." I told him, "You should just go to the Midwest. There's amazing people in the Midwest. You should just go talk to them." But these two had never met. Sarah was intimidated by his seniority. David didn't even know that Sarah existed. So I sent one email. "David, meet Sarah. She understands customer behavior better than anybody I know." "Sarah, meet David. He can get your insights integrated into the big plan for the business. Why don't you two have coffee this week? I'll buy." They met on Tuesday. Sarah came prepared. Instead of presenting him with things, she asked him questions. What's he trying to do? What does he wish he knew? David pulled out a napkin, sketched it right there. The gaps, the guesses, where they didn't have information. And Sarah turned her laptop around and showed him 3 charts. His jaw dropped. This is exactly what I needed," he said. "Where's this pen?" She said, "It's on my computer. I didn't know you needed it." 6 weeks later, Sarah presented to the executive team. Her insights changed their marketing strategy, their budget allocation, and 3 months later, results are beating projections. Your next breakthrough may not come from climbing higher. It might come from the value you create between other people. On that mountain, the people that reached their goal weren't the lone wolves. They were the ones who created a network of support around them. The most powerful leaders don't just climb faster, they make everyone around them stronger climbers. Think about the biggest project or analysis or decision that you're working on right now. Who should be co-creating that with you that isn't? Think about that for a minute. Our second shift is from being an expert to being a navigator. Someone who looks at the big picture, understands context, and guides those around them to success. So I have a lot of stories this morning that I haven't told anywhere else. I've saved them just for this. I was presenting years ago at a PASS event in Copenhagen, doing a talk that had been quite popular in the US. It was centered around having an audience member come up and help me build out the demo live in the room to show how anyone could do this complicated process with a little bit of help. It was a big hit in the US, big crowds, lots of energy, people loved it. We had a lot of fun. So I was really excited to do it in Copenhagen, new international location. You might be able to tell from my last name, Copenhagen is my family's ancestral country of Denmark. So I was really excited. Same talk, same demo, same format. But as my friends and fellow speakers neglected to share with me, Nordic audiences are not exactly in a hurry to come up and volunteer on stage. So I opened with my usual energetic swagger. I had it back then, I promise. So young. I explained the session, I explained what we were gonna do, I set up the big moment, and I said, so who wants to come up here and help me build this live? And I looked out at 500 people in this big ballroom, and I got nothing. 0 hands. I didn't even get crickets. The crickets were like, no. Just 500 people staring at me. And I didn't have these lights where I couldn't see the back half of them. I could see all of them staring at me. I tried, I said, okay, come on, this is gonna be fun. Anybody, it's easy, I promise. Somebody literally got up out of the front row and just walked out. I gotta tell you, gang, I've done a lot of speaking. That's tough. That's tough. I still to this day believe that person got a very important phone call from their family. I looked at my speaker friends in the back of the room. They were laughing so hard, they were crying. They were absolutely no help. I thought maybe one of them would volunteer as tribute. No, they were having too much fun. So I stood there for what felt like 5 minutes. It was probably more like 30 seconds. And then I awkwardly did the demo by myself, explaining what the volunteer would have done. It was kind of a disaster, right? The timing was off, the energy died, the whole presentation sort of fell apart to me. But here's what was interesting. Right after the session, a bunch of people kind of rushed the stage. They had questions. They wanted to follow up on things that I'd said. They wanted to ask about resources for things they were trying to learn. They were super engaged, incredibly thoughtful. They just weren't inclined to volunteer in front of 500 people. That's not how they operate. Afterwards, one of my Danish friends said, yeah, we don't really do that here. Volunteering in front of 500 people seems pretty American. And I went, okay. I was so focused on my content that I completely missed the context. The problem wasn't my content. It was my complete misreading of the situation. I had the technical knowledge, but I didn't understand my audience. And that's when I learned that expertise without context is just noise. On that mountain, all my preparation around fueling and hydration and pacing and gear selection, I'm a data guy. Y'all know I had spreadsheets and plans, and man, we were ready. It meant nothing when I couldn't discern what actually mattered in the moment and respond to it. I had to learn to read the situation and adapt my approach completely. If you can't read the room and tell the story that they need to hear, your brilliant insights are going to fall flat. So let me show you what navigation looks like in practice. 6 months after Copenhagen, I was doing another presentation. Different conference, different audience. I had learned my lesson. I got there early. I watched presentations before mine. I noticed the audience was quiet, respectful, engaged, but not interactive. So I changed my talk, cut the audience participation, adjusted the pacing, made it more story-driven, less dependent on energy from the audience. And it worked. Not because my content was better, it was basically the same. But because I read the room and I adapted. That's the first part of navigation. reading the room. On the mountain, I had to break my progress down from one ski lift pole to another, and then one fence post to another, one stick to another, and then one rock to another. Literally. Adapting to the conditions, the visibility, and most importantly, the limits of my abilities. But the most important thing is that I didn't stop moving in the right direction. And if you want high-performance teams, start with high-performance and high-growth conversations. Most of the time, this means breaking things down for others. Here's what this looks like. One of my team members, Alex, was struggling. Great technical skills, but he kept missing deadlines, getting stuck, asking for extensions. Old me would have had a performance conversation. You need to manage your time better, and you need to be more reliable, and how can we support you to do that? But I didn't think that's what was needed, so I changed the conversation, and I said, Alex, what's getting in your way? And he hesitated. He said, I don't know. I just keep hitting walls. And I said, well, what kind of walls? He said, I start a project, and I realize I don't know how to do part of it, so I'll spend days figuring it out, and by the time I do, I'm behind. I see some of you nodding. I said, why don't you ask for help sooner? And he says, well, I don't want people to think I can't do my job. And there it was. He's not struggling with technical skills. We all have to look things up. We all have to learn new things. He was struggling with asking for help. But here's the thing about Alex. He's like the rest of us. We're all judged on what we can get done. There's no participation award. That's the reality. And that pressure makes us afraid to admit when we're stuck. So we spend the next 20 minutes having a really great conversation about growth, how the best people ask for help constantly, how getting stuck and pushing through alone isn't productive. How learning to ask better questions faster would make him better at his job. How asking for help is actually what the best performers do. So I gave him a challenge. I said, for the next 3 weeks, I want you to ask for help within 30 minutes of getting stuck. Not 3 days, not 2 days, not 1 day, not 3 hours, 30 minutes. See what happens. 2 weeks later, he came back and he said, this is wild. I got more done in 2 weeks than I usually do in a month. And I learned so much more because I was learning from other people instead of just searching on my own. By the way, this is now Alex's superpower, getting things done. And that's what matters. Let's reflect on that for a minute. In the last month, when did you have expertise but miss the context? When did you know the answer but maybe struggled to get people to listen? And where do you need to ask for help and grow past your own fear? Everyone who has taken that last step started where you are. The third and final shift is from being right to being a catalyst. I'll warn you, this one hurts a little bit because it challenges everything we've been trained to value. In data, we're rewarded for being right. Our entire industry and identity is built on accuracy, precision, proof. We have entire sessions on choosing the right data type, precision, correctness. But being right can be the enemy of being effective. A couple of years ago, we were acquiring a company with a brilliant founder who built predictive algorithms. They were mathematically amazing. I sat in on his board presentation. He had perfect data, revenue forecasts, customer behavior predictions, a recommendation that was going to boost revenue by 15%. He walked through the slides, system architecture, feature importance, confidence intervals, everything documented, everything defensible. As a data nerd, I was in love. I was ready to go. I watched the board members' faces, and they started really engaged. And then confused. And then by slide 15, anybody know what this posture looks like? What's my next meeting? They checked out. The chairman stopped him and said, can you just tell us what you're recommending? And he said, look, I'm getting to that, but you need to understand the methodology first. And he said, look, we don't need to understand the methodology. I need to know what you want us to do. And he said, but if you don't understand how the system works, how are you going to trust my recommendation? And he said, the chairman looked at me and then back at him and said, we're going to take a break. His own board was about to fire him. He was losing this deal and his company in real time. I was watching this happen. In the hallway, the chairman pulled me aside and said, look, we can't do this anymore. Every meeting is like this. We ask a simple question, we get a lecture. He's so focused on being right that he never noticed he was making them feel wrong. He's so focused on proving his methodology was sound that he wasn't listening to what they actually needed, which is a decision. So we sat down after the meeting and he said, look, I don't think that went very well. I said, no, I don't think it did. What do you think happened? And he said, well, they don't understand the algorithm and they don't appreciate the rigor. I said, maybe they don't need to understand the algorithm. Maybe they just need to understand what decision to make and how to support you. And he looked offended. He said, my job is to provide accurate analysis. And I said, is that your actual job? And he paused and he said, well, it's really to help the company make better decisions. And I'm like, right, so are you doing that? Another long pause. And he said, but they're not making the decisions I recommend. I said, because they don't trust you. Not because you're wrong, because you make them feel stupid for not understanding you. That landed. Hard, but it landed. We had a time constraint. I had to sort of slam the plane into the ground. Here's what we discovered together. They weren't rejecting his data, they were rejecting him, because in his quest to be right, he made them wrong. And people don't follow people that make them feel stupid. I'm getting that stitched on a pillow for my office. We spent the next month working on how he shows up. Not what he presented, but how he presented. The next meeting, totally different. He opened with, we're facing a decision about pricing. I know this is complicated, so I've done some analysis that I think is going to help. But before we look at any of that, I want to know what's top of mind for you. What are you worried about? What are your questions? And the chairman looked surprised, and then he started talking. Customer retention concerns, competitive pressure, margin anxiety, integration of AI to the rest of the business. He listened, took notes, asked some clarifying questions. Now he's leading the conversation. Then he said, okay, based on what you're telling me, here's what I looked at. He showed them 3 slides, not 15. There were actually 27 in the original deck. We only got to 15. How many of you ever done that thing where you go to a meeting and you know there's 60 minutes in the meeting and there's 47 slides and you're doing the math and you're like, this is not going to go well? This is not going to go well. I'm going to fake an emergency. Each one of those slides answered a specific question that they raised. They had questions, he answered them simply, directly, no jargon, no methodology defense, everybody on the same language. The board took his recommendation and said, let's go, let's do it. That's where he learned the hardest lesson of his career. His job wasn't to always be right. His job was to be helpful. The moment he shifted from proving he was right to building bridges to what's possible, everything changed. 3 months later, the pricing change worked, revenue's up, retention's stable, the board trusted him. 6 months later, still CEO, the board had gone from wanting to fire him to giving him more authority. He's now coaching other people on how to do that same transition. They need a different playbook. He's finally got his copy, and now he's sharing it. What changed? Not his analytical ability. Not the algorithms, it was his approach. I had to learn this lesson too. Early in my career, I was working on a customer value system. I was so proud of it. You ever built something and you're like, this is my baby, I'm so proud of it. It was really sophisticated, which should have been my first red flag. I had survival analysis and incorporated all these variables, and predictive behavior went really well. This was before AI could just plug in. I had to go write it. I presented it to the VP of marketing, and I walked her through the solution, the validation, the accuracy metrics, and she stopped me and said, I'm sure this is great, but I can't really use it. I said, what do you mean? It's really accurate. It's amazing. And she said, well, I'm sure it is, but I don't understand it, and I can't explain it to my team, and I can't base decisions off of it. I was not happy. All that work, she's rejecting it because she didn't understand it. I pushed back, tried to explain more. That, not a good tactic. Just got more frustrated. Finally, she said, look, I need something I can use, not something I need a PhD to understand. Can you make this simpler? So I went back. Kind of angry, felt like she didn't get it, but I rebuilt it. Simpler approach, fewer variables, less sophisticated. Honestly, I thought it was worse. But she loved it. Used it constantly, made decisions based on it, and in reality, her team understood it, they all used it. It was probably better because everybody used it. My really complex, advanced version, if nobody used it, was just gonna get dust on the shelf. That's zero value. She was right. I was focused on the wrong thing. I needed her leadership to point and shape my focus and shift my perspective and my thinking. On that mountain, I had to let go of being right about what should work, where I should be, my original plan, my training, my expectations. I had to trust Brent's questions, accept my friend's help, work with conditions as they were, not as I thought they were going to be or as I wanted them, desperately wanted them to be, or planned for them to be. I had to build bridges between where I was and where I needed to go, and in some cases that was truly the next rock, a little higher up the hill. Some cases it was the next stick or ski pole. Here's what I discovered. The leaders who change organizations, who drive real impact, who get brought into the biggest decisions, they're not the ones who are always right. They're the ones who make being wrong feel safe so that we can solve things together. They're the ones who say, help me understand your perspective instead of, let me show you the data. They're the ones who build bridges instead of walls. Trust isn't built on being right. Trust is built on being real, being curious, making others feel heard, and finding the right answer together. When you bring others with you to discover what's right, you don't just get buy-in, you get champions. Think about the last time somebody convinced you to change your mind about something important. Did they do it by proving you wrong? Probably not. Or by helping you find something new? Probably the second one, because nobody really likes being proven wrong, but everybody likes discovering something new together. That's the shift from proving to discovering, from being right to being helpful, from building walls to building bridges, becoming a catalyst for your mission. Be honest, when was the last time being right got in the way of you being effective? I have to pause for this because I have such a long list in my head. Let me finish that mountain story. After 10 hours in those elements, crawling on my hands and knees, I made it to the top. Just once. Not 13 times, like I'd wanted, but I got there. The view from the top, whew, I barely saw it. I was too exhausted, too cold, frankly, too focused on not falling apart. But I made it, and that's what matters. On the gondola ride down, alone with my thoughts, I was torn between two feelings. One, part of me felt like I'd let myself and everyone who believed in me down. I hadn't done what I'd set out to do. Let's call that 95% of me. I'd signed up for 13 climbs. I'd done one that felt very much like failure. And the pain was intense. Part of it was the burning pain of just feeling coming back into my hands and my feet. I did thinking through that pain, though. Part of me hated that I hadn't completed my goal. But another part of me recognized the accomplishment. Making it to the top in conditions that made experienced climbers quit, that was something. I could see that with work, I knew I could do it. I knew I could find a way to achieve what I wanted on that mountain, no matter the elements. That moment on the gondola, that's where these shifts get real. Not in the success or failure, but in the moment where you choose what to do with what you've learned. How you choose to show up for yourself, even when you're struggling. How you choose to see possibility, even in challenge or disappointment. I chose to transform my health. I learned to apply what that mountain taught me about finding different paths, about adapting instead of forcing, about asking for help instead of powering through alone. And you know what? I'm headed back to that mountain next year. I'm already signed up. I'm going to get all my climbs in. I'll put it on social. You guys will see it. That motivation and commitment is exactly what we're talking about here today. Each of those three shifts come from moments in our business just like that gondola ride. Moments when I had to choose a different way forward. When I had to decide to change what I was doing, thinking, or saying to get different results. One of the greatest shifts I ever made had nothing to do with a promotion or an org title or a job change. It was the moment I decided to stop trying to be impressive and start trying to be helpful. I showed up differently. I listened better. My impact exploded. You are not only a data professional. You are a conductor of collaboration. You are a navigator of complexity and a catalyst for change. Trust, truth, and facts matter more today than ever. But what's even more important is the ability to use them to lead, to influence, and to scale your impact. The world is only going to move faster, but the future will follow the ones who shift with intention. Just like me on that mountain, you're facing difficult terrain. The old paths won't work, but you don't need to be faster. Too often the world says, we just have to go faster, we just have to go faster, we just have to go faster. Well, my daughter's here. She's 6. She's incredible. I just feel like I should say that from the stage. And she was out yesterday. We went down to Pike Place Market, and we went down that really big hill. My wife and I are walking down the hill, and she says, Daddy, I'm going to run down the hill. And I went, no. She has on her boots. Why wouldn't I let her run down the hill? Because I didn't want her to fall. Speed is not the most important thing. You don't need to be faster. You need to be different. One more story as we bring this home. One of the most influential leaders in my life is named Steve Hughes. Many of you in the audience know him. He's been in the community for years. He has a great blog called Data on Wheels that he now runs with his daughter, Christina, who's an MVP. She's a speaker here this week. Steve and I worked together for many years. He was always one of the the most trusted voices in my ear, pushing me to shift my thinking, to expand my perspective, all the things that I'm sharing today. Steve was always one of the leaders that I could trust to solve something no matter what it took. He would get in with the team, get creative, work with our clients, work with vendors, work with the community, whatever it was. He knew what mattered. Steve's been fighting a battle with ALS for several years now, and while his condition continues to try and remove things from his life, Steve adapts. He's incredible. When he could no longer walk, he started a team to walk for ALS. When he couldn't use his hands and arms anymore, he began advising Microsoft on how their accessibility tools and the suite in Office and all of their products in Azure could evolve and learn to use his voice to do everything. And now that it's taken his ability to speak, he types with his eyes and started a new blog about this adventure with ALS in his life. I was feeling really great. I got an email sent to my customers last week, and he emails me and says, "Hey, check out my brand new blog I just built." With my eyes. Incredible. So in reality, nothing has taken his voice. And when I needed feedback on this keynote, who was there to tell me when I needed to tighten something, better connect my thoughts, or that my jokes weren't funny? I left a couple of them in there. You guys got them. We don't know what life is going to throw at us, but we know that change is the only constant. Steve's attitude and adaptability, that spirit of, okay, let's tackle this and keep going, embodies all of the shifts that are crucial for this audience and is something I encourage all of us to embrace as we tackle this fast-moving world. Whatever shift you start with, realize it's one step on the journey. So it's time to make your choice. You don't need to master all of these tomorrow, but you do need to choose one. If any of you have ever been to a talk with me, you know you leave with homework. Think about where you are right now, not where you want to be, not where your LinkedIn profile says that you are. Think about where you actually are. Are you working in isolation, delivering insights that nobody's acting on? You need to become a conductor. Are you technically brilliant but struggling to get people to listen? You need to become a navigator. Are you constantly right but routinely ignored? You need to become a catalyst. Choose one shift that hits close to home. One shift that scares you just a little. One shift that could change the game if you just leaned into it. The shift you need isn't necessarily the one that you want. It's the one that addresses where you're actually stuck right now. And you can build from there. Maybe you already know which one it is. Maybe it's the one that made you a little uncomfortable when I was talking about it. That discomfort, that's usually the signal. The right shift is the one that makes your stomach drop just a little bit when you think about actually doing it. That's the one you need. So sit with that for a moment. Which shift is calling to you? That's your starting point. That's your Monday focus. If you choose conductor, pick one person whose work intersects with yours but who doesn't engage with your analysis or with your work on a day-to-day basis. Schedule coffee this week. Don't present. Ask them, what's your biggest challenge? Listen to understand what they say. Too often we listen to respond. Focus on listening to understand. And then say, what if we figured that out together? If you choose navigator, take one insight you're working on and before you present it, ask, who is my audience? What are they concerned about? What's keeping them up at night? And then rewrite it to lead with that. Then go ask somebody on your team, what do you need that you don't have? Bring ideas to that conversation. Make their growth part of your mission. And lastly, if you choose catalyst, before your next big recommendation, set up a meeting to listen, not present. Ask, what would you need to be true for this to feel right to you? What are you worried about? And then build your case on the foundation of their comfort, not the fortress of your correctness. Make them feel heard before you make them feel convinced. Here's the thing. These shifts don't happen overnight. We gotta practice, just like everything else. So practice deliberately for 30 days. Week 1, it's gonna feel awkward. That first coffee with the product lead, awkward. It's fine. We've all felt awkward at some point. It's familiar. You'll be fine. Keep going. Week 2, you're gonna see small changes. Week 3, it's gonna feel more natural. Week 4, you're gonna look back and you're gonna notice what's different. Then pick the next shift and start again. By the end of 90 days, you're gonna show up differently. You'll get called into bigger conversations because you're not just technically brilliant anymore. You're someone that people want to follow. I've put together a guide to help. I'm not giving you homework without help. It's got specific exercises for each shift. Conversation templates, reflection questions, ways to track your progress. The QR code will take you there. The link will take you there. It's free. It's practical. There's no sales pitch. It'll help you turn today's discussion into Monday's actions. Your path forward is up to you. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait to be ready. We're never ready. And don't wait for that perfect moment. I'm bad at that. I'm always like, a week from now is going to be better, or after I get through this thing or that thing. No. Don't wait for that perfect moment. Choose one and get started. I'm here to help you. Message me on LinkedIn if you have questions, if you need help getting going, if you are trying to figure out how to apply these things in your life. I'll help you out. I'll connect you with somebody that I know who's great at it. That's what this whole community is about. It means we work together. We all have our own mountains. The mountain doesn't wait. The terrain doesn't get easier, and the pace doesn't slow down. But you can shift. You can be better than your mountain, and you will be. So start shifting right now, today. Thank you for having me, Past Community. It's been my honor to speak to you this morning. I hope you have an amazing final day at Past Summit 2025.